There is a moment every morning that most people completely ignore. A small window of time that passes quietly while you make your coffee, check your phone, or simply try to wake yourself up. But after the age of 60, those first moments of your day may matter more than you ever realized. Because while your body is slowly coming back online after a night of sleep, your brain is already demanding something very specific. Fuel, not just calories, not just something to stop hunger. Your brain needs the right building blocks to maintain the connections that help you remember names, find the right words, stay focused, and feel mentally sharp. And here is the surprising part. Many people who maintain strong memory well into their 80s and 90s are not doing anything extreme. They are not taking dozens of expensive supplements. They are not spending hours solving puzzles every morning. They are not relying on some secret genetic advantage. Instead, many of them have built simple daily habits that support their brain over time. And one of the most overlooked habits happens before most people even finish their first cup of coffee: what they choose to eat in the first part of their morning. Now, before I tell you exactly what that food is, there is something important you need to understand. Because if you know the food, but not the reason behind it, you might eat it at the wrong time, combine it with the wrong things, and completely miss the benefit. That is why we are going to start with what is happening inside your brain during those first moments after waking. Because once you understand the science, breakfast will never look the same again. My name is Dr. Roberto, and for more than 2 decades, I have focused on memory and cognitive aging in adults over 60. And throughout my career, one question has followed me again and again. Why do some people stay mentally sharp deep into their 80s and 90s, while others begin noticing changes much earlier? I have spoken with thousands of patients who came into my office worried. They forgot someone's name. They walked into a room and couldn't remember why. They misplaced their keys more often than before, and the fear was always the same. Is this the beginning of something serious? Is my mind slowly slipping away? But after years of listening to these stories, I noticed something interesting. The biggest changes were often not caused by one dramatic event. They were usually connected to small things happening every single day, small habits, small choices, small patterns that repeated for years without anyone explaining their impact. And one of the most common patterns I saw started at the breakfast table. A meal that seemed harmless, a routine that seemed normal, but one that could influence how the brain receives the nutrients it needs to function properly. Before we go any further, I want you to think about something. What did you eat this morning? Was it something sweet, something quick, something you grabbed because you were busy? Maybe coffee and a pastry, maybe cereal, maybe toast, maybe nothing at all until several hours after waking. There is no judgment here. The reason I ask is because most people have never been taught that the first meal of the day can play a role in supporting brain health. And if you are over 60, this matters even more. So tell me in the comments one thing you notice you forget most often. Is it names? Where you placed your glasses? Why you walked into a room? I read these comments, and something interesting always happens. People realize they are not the only ones experiencing these moments. Thousands of others are asking the same questions. And that feeling of being understood matters, because memory changes can feel frightening when you think you are facing them alone. But here is something I want you to remember. Getting older does not automatically mean your brain has to stop working well. That idea has become so common that many people simply accept it. But the truth is much more complicated. Some changes in memory are a normal part of aging. But many factors that influence brain health are connected to things we can actually control. The foods we eat, the way we move, the quality of our sleep, the connections we maintain with other people. And yes, the choices we make during those first hours after waking. Because here's what most people never hear. Your brain wakes up before the rest of your body does. While you are still stretching, while you are still trying to become fully alert. Your brain is already working, already using energy, already preparing itself for the demands of the day. And after roughly 8 hours without food, it is coming out of a long fasting period. That means the first nutrients you give your body can become especially important. Think of your brain like a high-performance engine. You would not put poor quality fuel into an expensive machine and expect it to perform perfectly. Your brain is no different. It needs the right materials, the right balance, the right support. But this is where many people make a mistake. They give their brain the fastest fuel instead of the best fuel. A bowl of sugary cereal, a sweet pastry, white bread with jam, a flavored coffee loaded with sugar. These foods may give you a quick burst of energy, but they can also cause your blood sugar to rise quickly and then fall. And that roller coaster does not just affect your energy. Research has connected repeated blood sugar spikes with changes that can affect brain function over time. Your brain does not perform best with constant highs and crashes. It prefers stability, a steady supply of energy, and nutrients that help maintain the structure and communication of brain cells. This is where the story gets interesting, because beyond energy, your brain needs specific nutrients to support memory. One of the most important categories is omega-3 fatty acids, especially one called DHA. DHA is a major component of brain tissue, particularly in areas involved with learning and memory. Your brain uses it as part of the structure that allows nerve cells to communicate effectively. But there is another nutrient that deserves just as much attention, a nutrient that many people have heard of but few understand, a nutrient directly involved in the chemistry of memory itself. And this is where the food I am about to reveal becomes extremely interesting, because it is common, affordable, simple, and most people already have access to it. But before we get there, I want you to understand one more thing. The goal is not to find one magical food that solves every memory problem. That does not exist. The real goal is to create small habits that consistently give your brain the support it needs. Because your brain is not built by one meal. It is influenced by thousands of repeated choices. And one of those choices may be sitting in your refrigerator right now. In the next part, I'll show you the specific food researchers have studied for its connection to memory, the exact nutrient inside it that matters, and the common breakfast mistake that can quietly reduce its benefit. The food I am talking about is probably already sitting in your kitchen. You have likely eaten it hundreds of times. You may have even avoided it for years because of something you were told decades ago. The food is eggs, specifically whole eggs. And I know what some of you may be thinking. Wait a minute. Aren't eggs supposed to be bad for cholesterol? Please take a moment and subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it helps me keep bringing this kind of research directly to the people who need it most. That is exactly why this topic surprises so many people. For years, eggs were surrounded by fear and confusion. Many people over 60 grew up hearing that eggs were something they needed to avoid. But nutrition science has become much more nuanced. And when researchers began looking deeper into what eggs actually contain, they found something extremely interesting. Eggs are one of the richest common food sources of a nutrient your brain depends on, a nutrient called choline. And choline is not just another vitamin or mineral that sounds good on a nutrition label. Your brain uses choline to help create a chemical messenger called acetylcholine. Think of acetylcholine as one of your brain's communication tools. It helps nerve cells send signals. It plays an important role in learning, and it is especially involved in the process of forming and retrieving memories. In simple terms, your brain needs choline to help produce one of the chemicals involved in remembering. And here is the surprising part. A large number of adults do not get enough choline in their daily diet. Many people focus on calories, they focus on protein, they focus on avoiding fat. But they never think about whether their brain is receiving enough of the specific nutrients it uses every day. One large whole egg contains approximately 147 milligrams of choline. That makes eggs one of the easiest ways for many people to increase their intake of this important nutrient. And when you eat 2 eggs, you are giving your body a meaningful amount of choline early in the day. But remember something important. The timing is part of the conversation, because your brain does not operate separately from the rest of your body. The nutrients you consume interact with your metabolism, your blood sugar, and your overall health. That is why the first part of your morning can be such an important opportunity. Your brain has just gone through hours without incoming nutrients. It is preparing for a full day of activity, and providing balanced nutrition early can help support that process. But eggs contain more than just choline. They also provide other compounds that researchers have studied for their relationship with brain health. 2 of these are lutein and zeaxanthin. You may have heard those names before because they are often associated with eye health, but researchers have also found these compounds in brain tissue. Studies have explored their connection with cognitive performance, including areas like processing speed and memory. Eggs also provide high-quality protein, and protein matters because your body uses amino acids to maintain and repair tissues throughout the body, including the brain. Now let me make something very clear. Eating eggs does not mean you are guaranteed to prevent memory problems. There is no single food that can make that promise. Anyone telling you that one ingredient can completely transform your brain overnight is not giving you the full picture. The brain is much more complicated than that. But what science does support is this: consistent habits that provide your brain with important nutrients may contribute to better long-term brain health. Small actions repeated over years can matter. And this is exactly why simple habits are often more powerful than complicated plans. Because the best habit is not the one that sounds impressive, it is the one you can actually continue. So what does this look like in real life? A simple approach is this. For many healthy adults, having 2 whole eggs as part of a balanced breakfast can be an easy way to include choline and other nutrients that support overall nutrition. You can prepare them in whatever way you enjoy: boiled, scrambled, poached. Over easy. The cooking method matters less than creating a consistent, balanced routine. But now we need to talk about something that many people miss, because eating eggs alone is not the whole story. In fact, some people eat eggs every morning and still make a mistake that works against the very goal they are trying to achieve. And this mistake is incredibly common. It often happens right next to the eggs on the same plate. The problem is not the eggs, the problem is what people add with them. Think about a typical breakfast: 2 eggs. Sounds healthy. But then beside them, a glass of orange juice, white toast covered in jam, a sweet coffee drink, maybe a pastry. Suddenly, the meal looks very different. Those added sugars can create a rapid rise in blood glucose. And for some people, that can lead to the familiar cycle: a quick burst of energy, followed by a crash, then tiredness, then difficulty focusing, and over time, regularly choosing breakfasts that create repeated blood sugar swings may not be ideal for brain health. This is why context matters. A healthy food surrounded by less helpful choices may not deliver the result you expect. It is like planting a beautiful flower, but forgetting to give it the environment it needs to grow. The seed matters, but the conditions around it matter too. So what should you do instead? You do not need a perfect breakfast. You do not need to completely redesign your life tomorrow morning. Simple changes can make a difference. Instead of fruit juice, consider whole fruit like berries because they contain fiber. Instead of refined white bread, choose a higher fiber option if bread is part of your breakfast. Instead of a sugar-loaded coffee, consider reducing the added sugar gradually. The goal is not perfection. The goal is creating a morning pattern that supports your body instead of working against it. And this is where I want to share a story, because sometimes research makes more sense when you see how it connects to a real person. I worked with a woman I will call Marisol. She was 74 years old and had spent her entire career as a teacher. She was intelligent, organized, independent. But recently, something started bothering her. She found herself searching for words during conversations. She misplaced everyday items, and she became worried that something serious was happening. The fear was not just about forgetting, it was about losing a part of herself. When we looked at her daily routine, one pattern stood out immediately. Her mornings were built around convenience: a sugary coffee, a pastry, then sometimes nothing else until lunch. She was not doing anything wrong intentionally. She simply had never been shown how her breakfast choices could affect how she felt throughout the day. So instead of making a huge list of rules, we focused on a few simple adjustments. She added a protein-rich breakfast. She reduced the added sugar. She created a more balanced start to her day. Months later, she described something interesting. She did not say she had suddenly developed a perfect memory. She said something much more realistic. She felt clearer. She felt less foggy. She felt more like herself, and that is an important distinction. Supporting brain health is not about chasing miracles. It is about giving your brain the tools it needs and creating the conditions where it can perform at its best. But before you start tomorrow morning, there is one important point we need to discuss. Because while eggs can be a nutritious choice for many people, they are not right for everyone. If your doctor has specifically advised you to limit certain foods because of your personal health situation, follow that guidance. If you have an egg allergy, obviously eggs are not an option. And if you have concerns about cholesterol, heart disease, or your current medications, talk with your healthcare provider about what makes sense for you. Personal health always comes first. And remember, memory health is never about breakfast alone. Sleep matters. Physical activity matters. Managing stress matters. Staying socially connected matters. Your brain is influenced by the entire picture of your lifestyle. But the beautiful thing about this is that you do not need to change everything at once. Sometimes the most powerful improvements begin with one small decision repeated every day. And tomorrow morning, that decision could be as simple as paying attention to what you put on your plate. Because the first meal of the day is not just about stopping hunger. It is about giving your body and your brain a better starting point. Now let's turn this information into a simple plan you can actually follow. Because knowing something is helpful, but knowing exactly what to do with it is what creates change. So here is a realistic morning routine you can start with. First, within the first 90 minutes after waking, aim for a breakfast that gives your brain the nutrients it needs instead of just a quick burst of energy. For many healthy adults, that could include 2 whole eggs prepared in a way you enjoy. The goal is not to create a complicated recipe. The goal is consistency. Your brain benefits from what you do repeatedly, not from what you do once in a while. Second, think about what you are putting next to those eggs. Remember, the food itself is only one piece of the puzzle. A balanced meal helps create a better environment for your body. Instead of starting your morning with a large amount of added sugar, choose options that provide more steady energy. A few berries, a piece of whole grain toast, a side of vegetables, a drink with little or no added sugar. Simple choices, nothing extreme, nothing expensive, nothing that requires you to completely change your life. Third, give your body time. This is something many people struggle with. They change one thing for a few days, do not notice a dramatic difference, and assume it does not work. But your brain was not shaped by one bad breakfast, and it will not be transformed by one perfect breakfast. Your brain is constantly adapting based on thousands of repeated signals. That means the small things you do every day can matter more than the big things you do occasionally. Think about walking. One short walk does not completely change your health, but thousands of steps taken consistently over months and years can create a completely different outcome. Nutrition works in a similar way. The power is in repetition. Fourth, remember that your personal health situation matters. If you take medications, have specific medical conditions, or have been given dietary restrictions by your healthcare provider, always consider that before making major changes. General health information can guide you, but your doctor understands your individual situation. Now I want you to think back to the beginning of this video, that first morning window, those first moments after waking. For years, many people have allowed that time to pass without thinking about it. They grabbed whatever was fastest, whatever was easiest, whatever required the least effort. And honestly, that makes sense. Nobody wakes up thinking, how can I optimize my brain chemistry today? Most people wake up thinking, where is my coffee? But the good news is that you do not need to become a different person overnight. You do not need a perfect routine. You do not need expensive supplements. You do not need complicated programs. Sometimes improving your health starts with simply understanding what your body has been asking for all along. I think about people like Marisol because her story represents something many people need to hear. She was not looking for a miracle. She was not trying to become 25 years old again. She simply wanted to feel confident in her own mind. She wanted to trust herself again. And that is something many people over 60 can relate to. The fear is not always about forgetting a word. It is about wondering what that forgotten word means. It is about asking, is this normal? Should I be worried? Can I do anything to help myself? And the answer is that there are many things you can do. Your brain is not a machine that suddenly stops working at a certain age. It is a living organ that responds to the environment you create for it. Every meal, every night of sleep, every walk, every conversation, every healthy choice sends information to your body, and those messages add up. So tomorrow morning, before you reach for the easiest option, take a moment and remember this. Your first meal is not just feeding your stomach. It is sending instructions to your entire body, including your brain. Now I want to hear from you. What is your typical breakfast right now? Do you usually eat something sweet? Something high in protein? Or do you sometimes skip breakfast completely? Share your answer in the comments, because your experience could help someone else watching this video realize they are not alone. And if this information helped you look at your morning routine differently, consider subscribing. This channel is dedicated to bringing you practical, science-based information about healthy aging, memory, and ways to support your body as you get older. Because you deserve more than rushed explanations. You deserve information you can actually understand and use. And if you know someone who worries about their memory or is trying to stay sharp as they age, share this video with them. Sometimes the most valuable gift you can give someone is simply helping them learn something that may improve their daily life. Remember this, aging is something none of us can stop, but how we support our health while we age is something we can influence. Your brain has supported you for decades. It has stored your memories, your experiences, your relationships, your entire life story, and every morning gives you another opportunity to support it. Start small, stay consistent, and never underestimate the power of one better choice repeated every day. I'm Dr. Roberto. Take care of your brain, and it will continue taking care of you. This video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your diet, especially if you have existing health conditions or take prescription medications.